Before the first shell fell on the Western Front, there was a more invisible war being fought, a war of whispers, runners, flags, and fraying wire, words that never arrived, orders misread in the dark, signals swallowed by artillery fire. Welcome to Fieldcraft Chronicles. Today we go underground, into the cold and the noise and the rot, to uncover the forgotten fieldcraft of the First World War soldier, and ask one haunting question: what happens when the message never gets through? Stand at the lip of a First World War trench, and the smell hits you first. Wet clay, wood smoke, unwashed wool, and something beneath it all you cannot name. Duckboards float on standing water. Rats the size of small cats move through the shadows with unsettling confidence. This was home. But the trench was more than a defensive line. It was a survival ecosystem. Soldiers read the mud for signs of enemy tunneling, listened to the wind for gas, and learned to sleep standing up during bombardments. Every zigzag in the design contained a lesson in geometry and survival, learned in blood. The armies of 1914 marched into industrial war with Napoleonic ideas about command. Artillery barrages severed telephone cables within minutes. Runners carrying written orders across no man's land were killed before they arrived. At the Somme in 1916, orders sometimes took 4 to 6 hours to travel, just a few miles from brigade headquarters to the front line. By then, the situation had changed beyond recognition. Flanks were exposed because confirmations never came. Thousands died in the silence between sending and receiving. The soldiers who survived did so not by waiting for orders, but by developing a fierce, practical independence, a grassroots fieldcraft that became one of the most remarkable adaptive achievements in military history. When men weren't fighting, they were building. In the chalk soils of northern France, soldiers dug 12 to 15 feet down, creating underground rooms that could absorb shellfire. In the waterlogged clay of Flanders, digging down meant drowning, so they built up, layering sandbags and corrugated iron into thick earthen roofs. Timber was stripped from abandoned farms and ruined villages. Men learned to identify load-bearing stress and build sleeping shelves from ammunition crates. German dugouts were deeper and more permanent. Allied ones were improvised and temporary. Both philosophies shaped a different fieldcraft, and both carry lessons for any modern bushcraft practitioner thinking about the relationship between mindset and shelter. Clean water almost never existed at the front. Shell craters pooled with stagnant water carrying the dead, explosive residue and every waterborne pathogen imaginable. The British Army issued compressed chlorine tablets that made foul water drinkable, barely. Food arrived cold in sandbags or petrol cans. Hardtack biscuits required soaking before they could be eaten without breaking a tooth. Soldiers heated tins of Maconochie stew over hidden fires, using hooded lamps to avoid detection. They learned to eat quickly, waste nothing, and treat every calorie as a tactical resource, principles that belong in any serious bushcraft education. By 1916, artists and naturalists recruited by the British and French armies had transformed military concealment. Snipers wrapped in Hessian suits, threaded with local vegetation, the direct ancestor of today's ghillie suit, became invisible against broken ground. Observation posts were disguised as painted steel tree stumps installed at night. Meanwhile, trenchfoot threatened to remove men from combat within 72 hours. The Army's response: spare socks, daily whale oil, mutual foot inspection, saved tens of thousands. Lice were universal, and the nightly ritual of running a candle along clothing seams became both hygiene practice and social bonding. Morale, it turned out, was itself a survival technique. The men of the First World War did not choose to become survivalists. They were coal miners and bank clerks, farmers and students, forced to adapt or die. What they built, the dugouts, the water systems, the camouflage, the hygiene rituals, came not from training manuals but from necessity, ingenuity, and a refusal to be defeated by circumstance. That is the heart of Fieldcraft, not gear, not gadgets, but the capacity to observe, improvise, and keep the person next to you alive. The trenches were the most brutal classroom in human history, and their lessons echo into every wilderness survival course and bushcraft community today. When communication fails, as it did then, as it will again, the person who survives is the one who already learned to think for themselves. If this episode opened your eyes to the depth of World War I Fieldcraft, share it with someone who values history, self-reliance, and survival, because these stories deserve to be heard. Subscribe to Fieldcraft Chronicles. Knowledge is the most important tool you can carry. We'll see you in the field.